Excuse me. This is the live stream from Daishu-in West. I'm Koju. Another beautiful day at the temple. We're at the end of a session now. We started a little early this time. We started actually last Sunday, just after I gave my last talk, if you saw. And it worked actually pretty well. I think that's a good way to go. There are some advantages to doing longer sessions. Disadvantages too, of course. But I always feel that sort of around the third day or the fourth day of a session, I hit my stride. And so, of course, if you're just doing a 5-day session, then you don't have a lot of time left. But with a 7-day session, then you have a little bit of time to work with that, whatever stride you hit. So that was cool. That was very, very cool, and I'm happy with that. Lightly attended, not a lot of visitors at this time, but that's okay with me. It means I don't have to cook for a lot of people, so fine. And actually, it being September, just past the solstice, equinox, excuse me, end of session. Just past the equinox, it's Ohigan in Japan, or just, Ohigan has just ended, which means that the Shinto are entering the monasteries. And Josan, our disciple, is entering Daitokuji Monastery. If I'm correct, this should be his 4th day doing Niwazume, the waiting in the courtyard, which is actually when it transfers to Tangazume, which, so right about now, I think, 1:30 or so, they should be taking him inside. He's probably helping them clean at the moment, and they will take him in and give him a room. If you're not familiar with Niwazume, it's traditional when you're entering as a monastery. They don't, you beg entrance. They don't just let you come in. You have to beg for entrance, which means they leave you, they tell you to get lost, and they leave you waiting in the entryway for 3 days. At least at Daitokuji it was 3 days. Maybe other places do it other ways. But at Daitokuji it was 3 days. And so you wait there with your head down on the step for that time, and they periodically come and throw you out and feed you too. You have to, the way it was explained to me actually when I had to do the reverse roll for the new entrant, throw them out, and you have to give them a little bit of direction because they have to, use the toilet and when are they going to eat and that sort of thing. So when it's your responsibility to do that, you kind of have to know how am I supposed to be interacting with this person. And they're actually, in a way, they're a guest. They're an unwelcome guest is a way to visualize it. They're imposing themselves on the monastery, and so you chase them off, and you just leave them there and ignore them. But you can't just let them, starve, until they keel over. You can't let them just freeze to death, overnight on the doorstep. You bring them in at the end of the day, and you say, okay, here's the storage room. I put a futon in here for you. Roll that out, go to sleep. We'll throw you out again in the morning. Good night. Or, we saved a little bit of lunch for you, come here, and you have a little place set up for them outside, where they eat, and with the taku, the clapping sticks, and they are supposed to read the sutras, and they know everybody's listening to them, and can they do it or not? And so you actually learn a certain amount about the new entrant while they're doing that, because if they can't read the meal sutras, then you kind of wonder, what kind of training has this guy had? I'm not sure I ever saw a monk who couldn't read the male sutras when they came, but you get a sense for their voice and their carriage and that sort of thing from them. Anyway, so that's for 3 days, and then on the fourth day, they say, okay, well, you're so dense, you can't take a hint, so it can't be helped, come on in and you just sit in this room and do zazen all day. And, we'll talk about it again tomorrow. And so there's a room in the hondo, like kind of one of the side rooms, and you just stick them in there. No cushion or anything. You just stick them in there. Their luggage. They have a bag that they are, has their underwear and bowls and sutra books and razor. Their monk set with them, and you stick them in that room, and they face the wall, and they sit. And the room is open on 3 sides. They face the wall, and then all around them it's open. So they have no idea if anybody's peeking on them or not. So you're too, you want to make a good impression. So you don't move. You show restraint, and you don't fidget, and you just you sit there, and it's arguably harder than doing 3 days twisted over sideways on the step, begging for entrance, because it's just zazen. In fact, when I was looking after the new recruit, that's when he escaped. He couldn't deal with doing zazen, and I have to say I was a little. I was kind of playing some psychological games with him, perhaps, because I could tell he was having a hard time. And you give him a little break. You bring him tea in the afternoon and talk to him a little bit. There's the monk that's sort of tasked with being nice to him, and making sure that he's okay. But I was saying stuff like, oh, well, we sure do a lot of sitting here, and it's, you have to start with doing full lotus day 1. It's mandatory, and I really worked on learning how to sit for a year and a half before I came here, and even still, it's really painful, and have those kind of conversations with him when I brought him tea, and the next day he wasn't there anymore. So it happens. But Joseon's not going to have that problem. He's going to do fine. So he'll just be starting that today. In a few hours now, they'll take him into that room and give him a place. And he'll do that for another 3 days, and then after that, the final night, then he has a meeting with the Husan, the sort of the head monk, the head of the Joju, the kitchen monks, the monks that have jobs. And he'll, speak to him sternly about how important it is that he takes it seriously. And then the next day he'll have a nice outset with the Roshi, and the Roshi will put the fear of God in him. And then he will officially join the monks in the Zendo. And there's a little ceremony that's done. That's done on the morning of the 7th day. And it's, it certainly, as I say, it does happen that monks escape during this, because it is a time of reflection, and it's not easy. You've got people playing like psychological games with you and telling you things, and you're in pain. It could be freezing cold, it could be blazing hot, and you're just sitting there, stuck with yourself. In a strange environment, not really sure what to make of the things that you hear and see, and it can be very, very intimidating. So we have to reflect, like, why do anything like this at all? And it isn't just Joseon or Shintos, of course. This is all of us. Like Sashin. We did a lot of sitting this last week, and I'm definitely feeling it in my legs. my knees. And about midway through, I was talking to Emily, who's a very enthusiastic practitioner who lives down the road from the temple. And talking about doing a longer sessions and how that was going, because we were at about day 4, day 5, and we were both sort of like, yeah, I think this is good. And I said I felt like there was this kind of settling that happens about that time. And now that I've had a few more days to reflect on that, I don't think that's an accurate way to express that. It isn't so much a settling, because the mind, the analytic mind is still crazy. In fact, as you don't sleep, my experience is that as you don't sleep and you're working really, really hard and you're trying to stay focused, sometimes it just kind of spazzes out a little bit, the mind, the analytical mind, and it's just throwing stuff at you kind of out of desperation. And you end up, you're like, you remember things that, you would never remember under ordinary circumstances. And you're just like, where is that coming from at this time? Like, that's really weird. But all that, despite all of that, or notwithstanding all of that, there's sort of a gap that opens up. There's a space that happens. Because so much of the time, we all are Master Rinzai says, the Mui no Shinin, the true man of no rank. He says, those of you who have not yet, the true man of no rank is always going in and out of the gates of your faces. Those of you who have not yet verified him, look. And that Mui no Shinin, the true man of no rank, that is the one who knows, who is, who says that I am. And as I've said before on this channel, we don't have to have analytic thought to know hot or know cold. We don't have to have analytic thought to know that the bird is chirping. The analytic thought comes afterwards. Somebody has a big old stinky fart. You don't need to think that's a big old stinky fart. That you already know that. The thought comes afterwards. But whatever it is already known. And the analytic stuff as well. It is known. By somebody. By that true man of no rank. Is how Master Rinzai puts it. It is just known. That is I am. And that's all that is. That... But we get confused, and we identify ourselves with the analytic stuff, and the thinking, and the arbitrarily distinguishing between this and that. And so, to put it in kind of a trivial way, that analytic thinking is already the true man of no rank, but we miss the root and pursue the leaf and the branch, right? It's already known, the thought, the smell, the taste, the touch, the sound. It's all already known, but we identify with the thought and the touch and the taste, touch, and sound. And the isness of it, the knowing, the I amness of it, is sort of glossed over and lost. It's like the water. It's so immediate and obvious that it's actually not seen. And so in kind of a trivial, and it isn't really accurate, so maybe I just won't say it, but to put it one way, we're always stuck on that. And so we do things like beg entrance to the monastery or do sesshin or, sit quietly for a long period of time. Even if it's just, if a long period of time is, just, 10 minutes. And then sort of a gap opens up. Maybe the mind is still going crazy and still just throwing stuff out there all the time. It's not, I'm not saying that stops. But there's this opening that happens. There's this gap that happens. And we see that is just stuff. That is just the mind jumping around like a crazy monkey. And what actually is always there, despite that crazy jumping aroundness of the mind. And so that's, for me, that's a reason to do it. Not that anything actually changed, because it was always that way. There was always that isness there. And the mind also jumping around. But that isness is also the mind jumping around. But there's this lack of caught upness with the jumping around, with the crazy monkeyness, with the smells and the tastes and the touch and the sounds and all the different forms. And the I amness that is in all those different forms is the same I amness everywhere. There is no different I amness. It is all one solid block of reality, seen in different ways, showing itself as taste, as touch, as sound, as sight, as the cool breeze on our face and the really stinky fart or whatever it is, right? It is all just one solid block, completely undifferentiated, and yet showing itself as analytical thought, jumping around madly like a crazy monkey. So, it's a good thing to do. Hi, okay, let's see, as far as news goes for the future, well, there's a young man coming later in the week. He's just staying for a few days, a new fellow. We'll see how he does. And it looks like it's going to get hot again. It feels kind of like fall, but it's still summer, and there isn't any rain in the forecast yet. Life in the hills continues. As always, if you'd like to get in touch, don't hesitate to write at the contact at Daishu-in-West.org, and it comes straight to me. And ask any questions or anything you want to ask. It's always available. はい。ありがとうございます。